Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. So glad to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's talk about some things. We got some interesting stuff to talk about, and who knows, I may have a hot take, and you may want to give me your opinion. Now, first of all, Alabama. We're going to talk about some state stuff. We're going to talk about Alabama first, then we're going to talk about some Oklahoma stuff, then we're going to talk about some nation stuff, and then I may get into some theology here in a minute if I'm feeling like it. But Alabama has done something outstanding. They have actually shown logical consistency, moral consistency in deeming human embryos, which is a human being. It's whenever an egg is fertilized and you have your own unique set of DNA, unlike anybody else, these are now human beings, and this has major ramifications for IVF, particularly the industry. You know, we can talk about IVF in terms of moral reasons. You know, I think there is a way to do a moral means of IVF, but the problem is that's not how it's normally done. But what Alabama's done is they are protecting the buying, selling, distribution of human beings. Obviously, the human embryos are made, and there's several different ways to approach it. There are families that approach it with very much a moral mind, and they are not going to just abandon any babies that they have. Obviously, there's the process of gathering eggs and these matters, and you may wind up with more than one fertilized egg. And I'm not going to get into how you should go about that. What I'm saying is there are some families that have a moral approach. Mothers and fathers that do want to do this the best way possible, in alignment with virtue, doing what is good, not doing what is evil. However, there are some who don't have that mentality. And so what do is they only want one, maybe two, and then they discard the rest. And these are human beings that we're talking about. And this is important. We've got to be consistent. If we want to be taken seriously, especially as people who defend the unborn, those that stand against matters of abortion, we've got to be consistent. If we're going to argue that that baby in the womb is a human being with rights, we can't all of a sudden be inconsistent when it comes to human embryos and say, oh, those aren't human beings either. No, our logic has to be consistent. One of our big problems within sometimes our own conservative circles is our logic is not always consistent enough. We need to have good, clear logic across the board. That is very, very important. And I think that's important when it comes to theology as well. I'm not going to go on that stump just yet, but so often you see Christians with inconsistent theology. Whenever you have inconsistent theology, you are just simply not going to be taken seriously. Thank you for joining us on YouTube today. We have Susan. So glad to have you. I like when you broadcast the singing portion of your morning service. So that singing portion, the one, if you're thinking of the one from the other day, that was a very special portion of our service, and we don't normally have those people out. They came to do a special worship service for us, and that was great. I wish we had them every week, but I'll keep that in mind. I may upload the whole thing. We have Nancy. Good morning, Nancy. So glad to have you. And Nancy says, Susan, I think it's a copyright issue regarding the songs. The older hymns don't have a copyright. Well, Nancy, we actually play the older stuff. So we just do hymns at my church. We don't do a bunch of modern stuff. So we could upload it. It wouldn't be a problem. Ken said, good Monday morning. Welcome to the fastest growing podcast in internet history. That's right, Ken. We are taking over. We are going to be giving Joe Rogan a run for his money by the time this is all said and done. Myra's so glad to have you. We also have Susan on Worshify as well. Once again, I don't know how long it's going to last on YouTube. I'm going to give it my best shot, but YouTube doesn't like it whenever, tell the truth. So I'll be here as long as I can, and then whenever I get kicked off, you're just going to have to go to Worshify. I know some of you like to do your apps and stuff. Just stay tuned. Don't worry. Now, stay tuned. Don't worry. Now, this matter of embryos, IVF, and Alabama, I think it's good. We've got to be consistent. We cannot be all over the board, because we're not going to actually have any strength in defending the unborn. If that embryo is inside a womb, then we all defend it. Obviously, that's a human being. But then some people, we want to kind of get a little bit indifferent when it comes to matters of IVF. Now, IVF is a serious moral problem. And I'm not talking about, once again, this idea of maybe saying IVF shouldn't be done at all. I don't know, I'm 28, give me some time to think about it. Once again, I think that if there's only one human embryo involved, well, then you don't really have a moral dilemma there. You have one person, you're doing everything possible to bring that one person into the world. That's another conversation altogether. So I'm very proud of Alabama. That's good. Other states need to follow suit. They need to get with the program, and that's great. I'm all for it. 100% support them in that decision. We've got to be consistent. One of the things that makes Christianity so weak in society is we are not consistent on even what the gospel is. You go from one church to the next and nobody can really give you a consistent presentation of what even the gospel of salvation is. And that's because we all have our own different Bibles that we use, we have our own different theology assumptions that we use, and we follow the opinions of different pastors and theologians. If we would just go to the Word of God and let Scripture say what it says, then we would be much more consistent and be able to articulate, be able to defend the salvation message, our gospel that we have. So that's a problem that Christianity has to fix. We got to be consistent in our logic. We got to be able to stand our ground and not shift. We don't want to be a politician who is like Jell-O trying to nail them to the wall on something. These things matter. Now, I want to talk about another hot button issue. And I know some of you may disagree, and that's okay. I'm not up here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm up here to tell you what I think, and I try to be just honest with that, and you can let me know your thoughts. So, many states have realized that our school systems have absolute awful books in their libraries. Teachers are pushing awful books and books that have degenerate filth in them, and we're starting to realize, hey, this is not good. Maybe it's not good that we have these books that have these terrible things in them and that are not appropriate for children to read. And so the Oklahoma State Superintendent, Ryan Walters, he is in the process of banning certain books. Now, I'm all for let the local government, let the local community take care of themselves. Let them take care of themselves. However, I want to think about this for just a minute. The reality is, the education system has been infiltrated by teachers who are libs, they're big libs. They are telling kids that you can be gender fluid. They are normalizing the idea of promiscuity within school. They are, by the way that they talk, the way that they joke around with students. I'm telling you, these things are going on, and it's not okay. It's not okay. So they, without parents being knowledgeable, are exposing our kids to this stuff. Anywhere from 12 to 18. They're having them read books. They're talking about these different matters. And what are we going to do about it? Do we not agree this is a problem? Here's the thing in Oklahoma and other places as well. Parents, for one, many kids don't have parents because their parents aren't involved in their lives. Their dads have been absolutely useless. Their moms don't take care of them. We all know the terrible stories. Children growing up without any solid, stable home. These kids have no way to be mobile. These kids have no way to help themselves when it comes to schooling. So much of them are at the mercy of wherever they're at. Ideally, in a perfect world, and I was just having this conversation, ideally in a perfect world, yes, the parents pack up the kid and take them somewhere else and let that school system die. Because there's a lot of school systems that need to die. That's not the reality. These kids are trapped in these schools being taught by these teachers, filling them with terrible ideas. And why should we tolerate a public education system our tax dollars are funding? Why should we let them promote absolute degenerate garbage and filth on our kids in our state? I should be able to control where my tax dollars go. And so Susan, you say, yes, just banning the books doesn't take care of the problem when you have liberal teachers. This is true. This is true. The liberal teachers will still be there. But I'm all for the fact of we need to start wielding power. That's the reality. We have been on the conservative side, the Republican side, fill in the blank, not the Republicans have always been that conservative, but the conservative side of, oh, we cannot wield political power. We need to let everybody make their own decisions, and what happens? The other side of the aisle, the liberal side of the aisle, the leftist side of the aisle, they do wield political power. They infiltrate these places. They infiltrate school boards. They do these things, and then they cram down what they want on those kids. They do. So are we really just going to sit back and not fight fire with fire? I think that we've been for far too long trying to be I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. On our high horse. Not intentionally, but we think we're better than that. That we're not going to stoop to their level. That's below us to wield political power. I think that's a losing strategy. I think that we need to start wielding the power and cramming down what we want. Now, I know what you're saying. Somebody may say, well, what happens whenever a liberal gets in position and gets control of that power? Things will go just like they are now. It'll be no different. They've already banned the Bible. A teacher can't get up and teach from the Bible. So what possibly is going to get... How could it get any worse than what it is? Now, I know it can always get worse. I get that. I understand. I know. But really, what would be the difference if a liberal gets in charge and is the state superintendent? They replace Ryan Walters. And she starts cramming down and mandating these books. That's where we are right now, basically. The big schools that have all the power. So here's the reality that we're facing. This is from the Oklahoman. So Ryan Walters, a growing number of school districts are supporting Edmond in lawsuit against Ryan Walters. So Edmond, big fancy school district. These are the rich kids. These are the rich parents. These are the ones who promote liberal things, even though they don't really live liberal lives. They live conservatively, but then they promote all this liberal garbage. So they are challenging this idea of banning books. And there's two particular books that Ryan Walters takes issue with that a number of schools have. And the reality is, I've looked at the summary of these books. No, these books may not be the entire point. The entire point of these books may not be degenerate filth, pornography, but I promise you it's not a book that you would let your kid read. You would not let your kid read it. If you saw that book sitting on your kid's nightstand and you started reading that book, you would not be okay with them reading that book. It contains things that kids just simply shouldn't be exposed to. We need to protect our kids. I don't know why all of a sudden we think that giving kids access to everything on the internet, access to all these different ideas, is somehow good for them. How that is going to be healthy for them. They need structure, they need order, they need virtue and morality taught to them. You need to protect them. What happened to the be careful little eyes what you see, be careful little ears what you hear? We've completely thrown that out the window. So I'm just saying, I think the reality is either we do nothing and things don't really change, or we do something and we wield that power. And if we wield that power, maybe, just maybe, we can actually have a new generation of kids who don't hold those values of their liberal teachers. Because those liberal teachers are not able to instill in kids their indoctrination. Otherwise, we're just going to let these kids continue to be exposed to it. Oklahoma is at a growing rate of kids that identify, just like every state, but kids that identify as non-binary, transgender, whatever, fill in the blank, because these teachers are using whatever books they want to shove whatever curriculum and indoctrination that they want. And right now, there's not just a ton of school districts that have it all on lockdown, that are doing a good job. There's some, but guess what? They're not Edmond. Okay? They are not Edmond Public Schools that are doing a good job of paying attention to what the teachers are teaching and what the kids are reading. You know who it is? It's small rural schools. That's what it is. It's the small rural schools that have a conservative superintendent, a conservative principal, conservative teachers that are not pushing this filth down on their kids. But guess what? Guess who has all the big money? Guess who donates to all the campaigns? These big schools. These big schools are all united together working towards common goals. Something that the small schools need to do. Okay, fine, here's an alternative. If we're not going to give the state superintendent the authority to ban these garbage books that should not be in public schools, if we're not going to let him do that, if we're just going to let, all right, it's a free-for-all. Schools do whatever you want. Have whatever books you'd like. Whatever filth you want to show to these kids. Let our government stand for no sense of virtue or morality. Then how about the small schools? Y'all need to start teaming up, because there's way more small schools. And if the small schools did all unite, they could maybe take on the big schools in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And this is true, the same format for other states as well. Therefore, those are your two options. Wield political power. Basically, you're wielding political power both ways. Either wield political power at the state level and stop letting schools teach absolute garbage to our kids, trying to turn them into little robots that believe in the indoctrination that they want them to believe in, or the small schools need to start teaming up and teaming up fast and take down the big schools. Burn them to the ground. Because these big schools are the ones that are standing for this absolute garbage. So we got a problem. I'm offering solutions. Instead of, and what I'm telling you right now is the status quo ain't working. The status quo of just letting teachers teach whatever they want to teach and that schools should not ban certain books is not a winning formula. It's not a winning strategy. And Oklahoma is not a state where kids can be mobile, necessarily where even parents can be mobile entirely. Sometimes you're stuck where you are. You're stuck at the school district that you're stuck at, whatever the case may be. And we got to start making better schools. This is where homeschooling is a big advantage, but it's a luxury not everybody can afford. But homeschool is a massive advantage. And then there are those diamond in a rough rural schools that actually are good. They're out there, but they are very few. They're far between. And you got to hunt them down and find them. And they're good, and you better support them. There's some good ones where I'm from right now, but that's because we're in a conservative area still. So with all that being said, it's a big problem. It's a big problem with books that are being presented in our schools. And I know it's scary, the idea of giving the state more political power, but the liberals, they wield political power every single day. And guess what? They get the things done that they want done. And they have successfully redefined marriage. They have completely destroyed any security in our southern border. They are promoting all sorts of degenerate things in our schools. And that's all due to them wielding that power. I don't know. Either we can sit around and complain and say that we're not going to do that, or we can roll up our sleeves and get dirty and fight as well. So those are my thoughts on that today. Let's see here. Susan says, whenever possible, a Christian should homeschool. The curriculum has become so parent-friendly these days that anyone can do it. Yeah. You got John Nelson Darby Academy. That is a great source that you can use, that your kids would do extremely well. Your kids, if a 6th grader in John Nelson Darby Academy took a Bible test, they would do better than, I would say, basically 99.9% of every single seminary student in the country. Basically, maybe even 100%. That is how good that education is. It is an excellent education on the Bible and in all other aspects as well. Susan also says, my grandkids are all homeschooled, and I'm amazed at how much scripture they know. Yep. And it is the ideal scenario. That's the way it used to be. Of course, we live in a time now whenever parents, it's not easy. A lot of times both spouses have to work in order to make ends meet. That's just the reality of the situation. But we'll continue on and do the best we can. So if they're going to use public schools, my goodness, let's fight for them. Let's make sure that we have good public schools for our kids, and that we're not allowing teachers to promote absolutely terrible, garbage, indoctrinating, degenerate filth. Now, let's talk about another interesting things that libs say. From the Daily Wire, Democrats signal they might not certify a Trump win in 2024. Doesn't this sound so familiar? It's almost like 4 years ago, the Republicans said that, hey, this was kind of a really weird election. There were a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of strange things happened. And seems like a lot of the rules were changed last minute. Maybe we should reassess this thing before we just push it on through. And, of course, the Democrats all said, you have to certify the election. You can't deny the duly elected president of the United States. And, of course, they made their big rant and rave and acted like the country was about to fall apart. And yet, right here, 4 years later, whenever it looks like, Trump may just win, Biden's not a strong candidate, now they're singing a different tune and saying, well, maybe we won't certify the election. Of course, I want you to remember something. They want to say, oh, Trump was the worst president ever. Our country was falling apart, and he was almost about to not leave power. He was going to stay as a dictator, but he left. That's the thing they always forget. He left. Even under very strange circumstances, under circumstances that we all look at and anybody with common sense says, that was weird. That was really weird. Trump still left. He left the White House. He didn't stay. And guess what? The Republicans, they certified the election results. Whether they should have or not, they certified the election results. So here they are going to make this claim that they should not certify Trump because he's just going to be a dictator and stay in power. He already left power once. All of this is so ridiculous. And it just goes to show you that our political memory lasts for about 30 seconds. We never remember anything that happened in the last election cycle. We live in a continuous state of now, like as Orwell said in 1984. There's no history, none, no past. It's just the current now. Trump is Hitler, just like it was in 2016, just like it was in 2020. We can't let him have power. We can't let him have power. Never mind the fact that he had power and then he left peacefully. It doesn't matter. They just completely forget all of that. We live in a constant state of, this is the only time in history, apparently. This is the single most significant time in the entire existence of man. Susan says, I saw that headline and thought the same thing. Yep, that is exactly what they go to. Everything that they accuse conservatives of doing, they will do. They will do. Absolutely. Absolutely they will. Just like banning books. They'll say, oh, we would never ban books. Oh, really? So can a teacher teach from the Bible? What? Teach from the Bible? You mean talk about God and Christianity? No, of course they can't do that. But you can read to them about all sorts of completely perverted things. That's fine. Teacher can get up there and read that all they want. But oh my goodness, if we read anything in the Bible that may teach them about believing in God and family and getting married and believing in the one true God. We can't do that. That would be terrible. Oh my goodness. I need a bill. You know what I'm talking about. And I would like to get your thoughts. I know that's a little bit of a different approach, maybe than traditional ideology, maybe even traditional wisdom. The idea of don't let the state have too much power. I get it. I don't want the state to have too much power. But whenever our society is promoting a bunch of immorality, what do? I kind of look at it as, okay, everybody's murdering. Just go to a town that doesn't murder. Just go to a town that doesn't murder. The state should make a law about murder. I know I'm being a little bit dramatic, over selling this a little bit, but that's kind of how I feel. If you don't like where they're doing it there, if they're doing something terrible and immoral here, just go somewhere else. Well, I guess, okay, fine, Portland. The whole country can be Portland. We'll just go somewhere else, and then everywhere. When everywhere's Portland, nothing is Portland, right? And it is just the normal. It's the standard. That's what the Dems want. That's what the liberals want. What are your thoughts? I know I've got you on here. Be sure to let me know what you think. Now, with all that, I want to thank somebody, and I'll leave them nameless. I'll keep them anonymous for now, but we got a letter at our church. A letter from someone that was just saying they appreciated our ministry, they appreciate what I teach, the contextual Bible study, dispensational Bible study, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that and how much that helps me in my fight to provide a church with good sound doctrine. It's not easy whenever you are the only person who, well, as far as I know, I'm the only person, younger than 80 years old that uses a King James Bible in my Bryan Baptist Association where I'm at. There may be some that teach from a King James Bible, but once again, I'm in the minority. And whenever you start looking at other churches, you're going to see, wow, these other churches are very different from this church. The other churches, they don't really stress the importance of Bible translation. They certainly don't stress any important matters concerning eschatology or dispensational changes. Of course, a lot of them don't even hold to dispensational changes. So many of them are covenant theology. So the fact that you are supporting me and you are showing my church by writing letters that what we're doing is important, what we're doing matters, it helps me more than you can possibly know. And I'm so thankful for that. That is a big deal. We have to encourage one another. We have to stand together. And that's what we're doing right here. And like Ken said, we're just going to keep growing this thing. We're going to work on just getting bigger and bigger. I have a lot of plans. We are going to get this a little bit better. The curtains behind me here, they're not exactly not the prettiest. I know whenever I wear my black jacket, I kind of fade into the background, sort of. My hair kind of fades into the background. We're going to get there. Don't worry. This is far from our end product. We are going to improve. I want to bring you so much more important content. There are things that I'm working on that I'm very excited about that I can't share with you yet, but we are going to get there. And it's going to be something I think you'll be excited about. I'm really wanting us to change our mentality. And I'm not saying this is your mentality, but amongst those who care about actual Bible doctrine and don't just buy the same old garbage that's shoveled to them, whether it's the evangelical garbage or it's the Calvinist garbage, fill in the blank. I want us to take on a more offensive approach. We don't need to just hunker down in our bubble, in our bunker, and only associate with each other. That's nice, and it's always refreshing anytime I get on here and I talk about matters of theology or I talk about matters of politics. And I don't know, maybe some of you today aren't very happy with me on that. But I tried to explain myself the best I could. I'm not telling you that I have all the answers. I'm just saying we need a solution. But especially when it comes to matters of theology, the fact that we can all hop on here together and we have a like-mindedness. We care about the same important, fundamental doctrines. We understand why we need to stress the importance of taking the Bible for what it says literally. Not reading our own opinions into it, not spiritualizing it. You understand the importance of paying attention to the context. Who actually is being talked to? It always amuses me whenever I hear pastors say, oh, we need to do good hermeneutics. We need to know who is speaking and who they are speaking to, and then they just immediately start doing blanket application in that text. It tells me that they don't. They don't actually pay attention to who is speaking and who they are speaking to, but you get it. You know. And so it's so refreshing to me. It almost like it recharges my batteries whenever I get to associate and I get to talk with you because you do get it. You understand how important these matters are. But there's a danger, though, of us being content with that and just being satisfied with staying right here on the internet or whenever we do get to meet in person and not associate with anybody else. But that's not how we're going to change the face of Christianity. That's not how we're going to change the churches. We're not going to change our culture, our society, if we don't get out there and start doing stuff. And that's what I'm going to try to do. We are going to try to do stuff to actually get out there and challenge the standard doctrines in Christianity. And in doing so, hopefully we'll make a more conservative, more strengthened moral culture, because we're actually standing for the truth of the Bible. Whenever you actually do stand on the truth of the Bible, you don't fall into matters of socialism and feminism and all these things that have been detrimental to society. But we want to go on the offensive. One of the reasons why I call it Shields and Arrows, we are very much a, I don't know, militant group, I guess. That may get me on a watch list. Should not say militant. But what we are is a theologically offensive group. We are wanting to be tactical, strategic in our approach. We want to have a sense of we are going to go and conquer. And we are going to fight that culture battle. We are going to fight the battle for the churches. And we're not just this weird offshoot of Christianity that all just sits in a circle and only talks to each other. We are going to find ways to get the word out and start challenging the status quo. We're going to do that in a number of ways. And there's things I want to tell you about, I'm excited about, and I've got them in the works. Obviously, me having triplets has kind of put a little bit of a pause on some of that. Not a pause, it's just slowed me down. But we are going to start working on getting things done to fundamentally change that aspect, to change that landscape. I am working on doing things. Some of these things are going to be online that you will be able to watch, that you will be able to share. I ask you to please share this content, share this material if you can. Let other people know. But also it's going to be more of in person. I'm going to actually, put boots on the ground and start going to these other churches, making an effort. I'm going to be doing some Bible conferences coming up this year. I can't quite travel very far right now, especially with all the kiddos and whatnot. But eventually maybe I could travel to you wherever you are. I know some of you may be closer than others. Obviously we have a few down in Texas who watch. I can't quite probably go much farther than about, a couple hours right now. But we are going to get aggressive. We are going to try to make a point to bring sound Bible teaching to these churches and present it in such a way that we're going to be able to persuade people. I really think so. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take some wisdom. I'm going to have to figure out how to approach that, how to present it in such a way that's going to be convincing, that's also not going to be entirely off-putting to people. I think one of the challenges that we face is whenever you take the Bible for what it says, that turns a lot of people off because it's very contrary to what they've been brought up with. So I'm going to have to find a way to articulate myself. And I've been working on this. I've been trying to share with people, trying to talk to people, and I've made some headway. There's some things I've got to work on. I've still got to hone it in. I've got to sharpen it in to get to where I can go to a standard evangelical church, and hopefully this is my goal. Walk into a standard evangelical church and be able to, by the time it's all said and done, present to them sound doctrine, a contextual understanding of the Bible, where we understand the importance of discerning between the body of Christ and Israel, and I can come away and leave them, maybe not convinced, but at least thinking, he said some things that we need to look into. And I know that's kind of really pie-in-the-sky thinking, wishful thinking, I know. And maybe it's because I'm young and I'm ignorant. maybe I've said a lot of young and ignorant things today. But maybe it's also optimistic. I certainly hope that we are the start of something here. This is not just going to stay a really obscure part of the Bible-believing group, demographic. I want this to really grow. I really do. I want us to have a day whenever the view of rightly dividing the Bible, understanding and discerning between prophecy and mystery, these things are just as accepted within Christian circles as Calvinism is. It's amazing to me how an evangelical who does not hold to Reformed theology believes that whosoever can receive the gift of salvation will basically sit side by side and have a conversation with somebody who's a Calvinist, who believes that God chooses certain people to be saved and then the others he sends them to hell and it's all to his glory. Praise be to God because he sent that baby to hell. And then the Calvinists will say, well, he doesn't send babies to hell. Be consistent, Calvinists. Just like with the human embryos thing. Either it's a baby or it's not. When it comes to Calvinism, either it's election or it's not. You don't get to say, well, the babies are okay. No, you got to be honest. Stick to your guns. Don't be weak. That makes Calvinism look weak, because Calvinism is weak, and you pretend like you're strong. Listen, I know your type, okay? You're the guy in the gym who you act like you're strong, but then you never actually lift any heavy weight, all right? Leave the heavy lifting to the actual theologians, okay? Don't hurt yourself there, kid. Now, well, what's amazing is those evangelicals and those Calvinists will sit side by side, and they'll sit right next to a Catholic. And they have all vastly, vastly different theology. Eschatology, soteriology, fill in the blank. They don't agree on anything. Hardly. And yet, they're all welcomed at the table. But the second that a dispensational Bible teacher, somebody who can articulate sound Bible doctrine, walks up, they treat you like you're a heretic, and they go run the opposite direction. You're ostracized. Well, I see a day whenever we are welcomed at that table, where we are just as legitimate. And it's going to take numbers, I think. Numbers legitimize you, because nobody knows people who understand a mid-acts dispensational view. Nobody knows that person. And that they're only just strange, obscure people on the internet. If we can build this to where there is a church that holds to right divided contextual Bible study in every town, or at least every county, or maybe in a tri-county area, at least, people know, hey, there's that one church. They hold this view that you need to rightly divide the Bible. That contextual Bible study is very important. If we can get to that point, maybe that will help legitimize us. So we got to grow the movement, and also that may help us get a seat at that table. Nancy says, I remember when I first met you almost 3 years ago at a conference at your church. You've really grown, and I'm thankful you picked the right dividing mentor you have. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy, did you go to that one in Liberty? That was my very first year as a pastor. We hosted a Bible conference. I did not know that you attended that one. There were so many people that I got to meet, and so many people that I still know to this day that came to that Bible conference. Yeah, I didn't know that you got to make it to that one. Thank you, Nancy. I hope that I've grown. I've hopefully gotten a little bit smarter in some ways, more mature in some ways. So Susan, have you ever listened to Les Feldick? He was a rancher from Kenta, Oklahoma, who taught the Bible dispensationally 5 or 6 nights a week in surrounding communities. So I have been told so much about him. I need to look into his stuff and listen to him. And here's the thing. If I am still not very familiar with Les Feldick, I imagine most people in today's time, probably many of them have forgotten about him as well. And that's sad to say, because he did great work. So I need to look into him more, and maybe I can find that, I guess I'll use the word remnant, the remnant of people that know who Les Feldick is, and maybe I can utilize that. I can plug into his lasting impression. Cleo Geo, the problem is in the end there are too many views. Which is the correct one? Yes, and you're right, there are a lot of views, so why can't ours be accepted? Doesn't it seem like ours is the only view that people won't consider? They will consider all these other really vastly different views about who Jesus is, salvation, all of that, and yet ours is the one that they don't want to accept, because you take the Bible too literally. I actually had somebody just over the weekend, I was talking to them, and they're a covenant theologian, because all the cool kids are covenant theologians. I was talking to him, and I said, I just hold that salvation wasn't on the table in the Old Testament. They would go to the grave and had to wait for a day whenever they would be resurrected and judged by their works, where you and I can be saved right here, right now. And he said, I should show you the text, but it said, yes, the plain text reads that way. Yeah, so he agreed. Yeah, the Bible plain reading, that's what it says. It says it, just plain and simple. But he said, but there's a greater meaning within the text that we need to understand. Basically what they believe is the Bible's not enough. You cannot just take the plain reading of the Bible. You have to understand the culture of the Jewish people. You've got to understand what they thought, how they thought. So whenever you read, I know the plain reading reads this way, but a true Jew in that time, an Israelite, fill in the blank, whatever era they lived in, they wouldn't read it the plain way. They would read something mystical into it. And that's what it is. It's mysticism. And why did we let Origen win? Like we did. That's so frustrating. We let Origen define Christianity. That is so frustrating. How did we let a mystic in Alexandria determine all of that? Whenever we didn't have a single letter addressed to Alexandria, Paul's ministry, Byzantine area, Antioch, all of that. Like what happened to those that Titus raised up? Did they reject Titus? Like where did they go? What happened to them? Why did we have somebody like Origen set the tone? That is so frustrating to me. Are you frustrated? I'm frustrated. Maybe we need to talk about something a little bit more fun. I'm getting a little bit fired up here. Nancy said, yes, at Liberty. I have a picture with you to prove it. Nancy, can you send me that picture? Can you please send it to me in an email? I would love to see that picture. One of these days you can sell it for a lot of money. Probably not, but that's okay. Susan says, although he has passed away, he probably has 1,000 lessons online. Okay, I need to do this. I need to reach out and I need to talk to some of them. I'm sure there's whether it's family, whatever the case may be. I need to do that. Absolutely. I that's something I got to get on. Cleo Geo, I have trouble with the world's views. Yep, the world's views are all confused and messed up. Yeah, Nancy, you're right. Chuck and Myra were there. Oh, Myra was? Yeah. Lisa and Daryl too? Okay. I met so many people there, and I just didn't have any idea how important that was going to be. One of these days, whenever I'm big time enough, or I have a big time preacher, there's a certain preacher, y'all may know him. He does some conferences every now and then. I've been trying to get him to come to Oklahoma and do a conference for me, and he always tells me that he's booked up. Maybe you can talk to him. I think you know who I'm talking about. Tell him to come to Blue, Oklahoma, do a Bible conference. That would be good. And thank you. You're going to email that to me. So with that, I know I'm ambitious, but I think it's worth a shot. I think that we would be foolish not to try. Maybe we are foolish to try. Either way, I'm foolish. But there are people who want answers. There are people who are in churches today realizing that they are being shoveled a whole bunch of useless teaching in their churches, that their pastors don't give them any actual answers. It's the same sermon over and over. They want actual Bible knowledge. They want to know about the end times. They want to know about creation. There are people that want to seek that out, and they want to know the truth of Scripture. And they're not getting it from the standard run-of-the-mill pastors. The standard Southern Baptist preacher is not doing that, and others as well. So I think we could really do something. We could get some momentum behind us if we commit to it, if we can get the word out. And it takes a little bit of boldness. I have to be bold. I have to be willing to take on any challenger. I had a Calvinist comment on my YouTube channel here a while back, and I tried to get him to come on and do a debate on shields and arrows. And me and him were going to hash out Romans 8 and 9. But he ended up not responding back to me. I may reach out to him again and see if he's interested. But you've got to be bold. You've got to be ready to take on any challenger. And I'm still working on the proper balance. As a young man, it's tough because I come across as arrogant, I guess, whenever some people hear me. Like I've been told, you're kind of arrogant about that King James Bible. And so I think sometimes just being younger, whenever you're really confident about something or you feel really passionate about something, some people, it doesn't play well with them, and they're not used to that. I think that they're used to the picture of a preacher being Mr. Oh golly gee, Mr. Humble. And it's funny because that's kind of a false humility. So many of those those pastors do kind of have a sense of false humility, I think. And I don't know. I would guess I would rather be falsely confident than falsely humble. So I like to put off that I'm confident, that that I'm determined, I've got this figured out, I'm gonna be able to get the answer. Maybe if I don't, but sometimes you gotta bluff a little bit, don't you? So I have to be confident, and I have to stand on what I believe in. So I'm working on figuring this out. We are doing some awesome things at our church. I have, and I cannot take all the credit. I've got a family of good Bible students. They know how to rightly divide the Bible. They have been such a great help to me, such a great benefit. And we are taking a Southern Baptist church, and we are helping them become good Bible students. We really are. They're excited about grace. They are excited about knowing what the Bible says. They like the fact that we actually teach the Bible, and I think other churches can too. They just have to have it presented to them. But we just don't have enough. There's not enough pastors around that understand sound doctrine. I got a letter from a wonderful lady, the lady I was talking about, and she said in her letter that their church is looking for a pastor. And I feel for them, and I hate that for them so much, because there are so many people who desperately want to have a pastor who will teach the Bible, and you just can't find them. There's so few, they're so far between. But that's not the way I want it to be. I hope by the time my work is over, whenever I'm done, what others did before me, it'll only grow. So we have one sound Bible teacher create 2, 2 create 4, 4 create 8, and it just keeps on going. And then from there we can build something. We can really build a movement. Maybe one of these days we'll have a right divider on the Daily Wire, and he will be able to sit up there with the Catholics and the evangelicals and Ben Shapiro, and he can articulate and defend the dispensational view of Scripture. And maybe, just maybe, we can persuade some people and convince them that God is doing something today that He wasn't doing in the past, and it answers so many questions that Scripture seems to leave under the standard Christian view. But no, it's all there. God explains Himself. Susan says, I still use my old falling apart King James Bible because it's hard to find one. Yeah, you got to go to the bottom shelf in any bookstore to find a King James Bible, because they don't make money off of selling those. They make money off of, the publishers make money off of whatever new Bible translation. So they will always have new Bibles for old. And the sons of Adam leave their toil who are cursed with the curse of hope, and hang the profitless past in a noose on the thundering belfry's rope, and tear the branch from the laurel bush with feastings manifold, and the cry goes up to the scornful stars, new lamps for old. And that will be the story, but we are going to stand for that original wisdom in Scripture. We are going to stand for truth. Are there a Bible college teaching right division that you know of? You need to talk to Dr. White. He knows of some, I think, but they're not anywhere around Oklahoma. I think they're more up north towards maybe like the Chicago area. And Nancy said you emailed and texted me the picture. Okay, hold on, Nancy. Hold on. Are you okay? Before I show this, are you okay with me showing this or not? I won't do it if you don't want me to. So I will not do it without your permission. But I'll look at it right here on my computer. And then if you are okay with me showing everybody, then I will. Oh yeah, there's the crew right there. That's good. That's good. But yeah, I forgot about that. I did not realize how many of you made it to this conference. I actually remember taking that picture. I absolutely do. But with that, I'm excited. We are going to be back here tomorrow. Always going to have something new to talk about. And be sure to reach out to me. Email me your suggestions. One of the reasons why I touched on some Oklahoma stuff is I had someone from Oklahoma say, I'd appreciate it if you talk about a little bit of Oklahoma news and some things like that. And I said, yeah, that's fine. Oklahoma does have plenty of stuff going on. Okay, so here you go. I'm going to show you the picture real quick. Let me zoom in just a little bit. There we go. There's the picture. There's a young 25-year-old, I might have been 26 at the time, 26-year-old Mark Baze right there. And so he got Nancy in the picture and a few others. And so that is absolutely great. That was a fun time. It's always fun whenever you can get together with other right dividers. And you saw on my email list there. So, but thank you all so much. I'm so happy that I get to do this. I enjoy getting to talk to all of you. You're a great source of encouragement to me. I hope that I can be a great source of encouragement to you. And yeah, sure, I may sound ambitious. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy to think that we can accomplish all these things, but you got to dream big. You got to go all out, give it your best shot. You never know what you can accomplish, but you got to try it. You got to try. You got to give it your best effort. Thank you all so much for your support. You can go to markbaseministries.org to access my sermon notes, to access my articles, and you can always support my ministry. Help me be armed in the fight. And once again, some of the best ways you can is just by offering your encouragement. So thank you all so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Defend the faith. Defend the family. This has been Shields and Arrows.